Okay, we're ready. I'd like to call to order the North Oakland Transportation Authority Board meeting today's Thursday, October 17th, 2019. Location, South Oxford or Horry Township. Time is 4:32. Please pay respects to the flag. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joe, please note the roll.
So noted.
Now the approval of the agenda.
I have a problem with the agenda, or not the agenda, I'm sorry, go ahead. Minutes.
Was that a motion to approve
Yeah,
the
that's a
agenda?
motion. The agenda as presented.
And support for me.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Barnett.
I'm sorry.
Move on to the minutes. Margie, I think.
Okay, I was so excited to find a mistake. Under monthly rider and mileage reports, you were not here yet last month, so I don't think you could have moved to
Oh, no.
receiving
Not
back.
from Kenny Bunkport, me.
So,
My mistake. Be the new secretary.
No, you don't get off the hook that easy.
You have to screw up a lot better than that.
It's FaceTime.
Hi, Carly.
But with that exception, I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Public comments. Any public comments? You good? Old business, there is none. New business, Ecto HR. Who would like to jump up on this one?
Hi, Christine, Active HR here.
We have a podium up here. Please state your name, who you represent for the TV audience.
Okay, great. My name is Christy Kennan. I'm the Director of HR from Acto HR in Brighton. And we were engaged to do a human resource audit for NODA, which we started with an in-person meeting on site by 2 HR professionals on Thursday, September 5th. We spent about 3 hours in the office with Lynn and Doug asking some questions and going through employee files and conducting human resource audit. The rest of our time doing the audit was done remotely via phone and email. So not to bore you with too many details, but to give you a little bit about Ecto HR, we are a full-service human resource outsourcing and consulting firm. So we do HR for small and medium-sized businesses. We also have clients that are municipalities or quasi-governmental agencies, and we were happy to be engaged with NODA on this project. So when we come in and do a human resource audit, it is often a helpful way for the organization to see where there may be gaps in their HR practices. I think it's important to point out that we do HR for organizations that have human resource people on staff, and others where it might be a position of an office manager, a supervisor, for someone who's tasked with HR but may not have a formal HR background. So today, I realize you all have a copy of the audit report. I'm not going to read through it word for word for you, but I thought I would just highlight some things that
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this really private and confidential, or what makes it private and confidential?
Typically speaking, when we prepare this, it's not something, when it's a private entity, we don't obviously advertise it. So that's up to I shared it with the executive director who made the decision to share it with you guys. So
Wouldn't it normally be shared unless we have an attorney kind of draw this up? I'm just trying to clarify.
No, that's a great question.
Because they can be FOIA'd.
Correct. And I think this can be, that's my understanding that this can be FOIA.
Okay, just one minute.
Yeah.
Check.
Yes. So, if you flip through the audit on the first page, okay, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but I'm going to highlight for you. It is our goal in this audit to provide series of facts. This is what we found. Based on what we found in our expertise, this is what we recommend. It's important for me to note that we do not provide legal advice and aren't responsible for maintaining compliance, but it's our goal to help provide tools to help you be compliant. So under Roman numeral 1, you'll see general compliance matters. The first one being employment law posters. We found that NOTA did have an all-in-one employment law poster in the break room as displayed properly as it should be. Item number 2, employee files and related documents. We reviewed 16 employee files in their entirety, which is about half of the employee population. We found that they were consistent, orderly, told a story about each employee's history with the company. Most files did have some missing information that we think would be pertinent to an employee file. So we did go ahead and highlight what those things were and provided one with a summary sheet of what was missing from those files and tools and coaching on how to go through the remaining files and make sure those things were missing. Those types of things include federal W-4s, state W-4s, resumes, for instance, are not required to be in employee files, but if you have one, we suggest that it be in there. We did find that most employees' files had their I-9s within the actual employee file, and those should be kept separately in a separate binder under separate lock and key. So we gave Lynn and Doug both coaching on proper file maintenance and retention. Moving on to employment applications, item C. All employees had an application in their file based on their date of hire, and when they came in, they were different versions of the application. So we encourage NOTA to continue to have all applicants complete an employee application if they are hired, that they do are maintained in their employee file. Employees also have background check authorizations in their files. This is something that's great that NOTA conducts these consistently. However, they should be maintained under separate lock and key. So we coached Lynn and Doug on how to do that, and we physically moved some of those files with them while we were there on September 5th. We did notice that under item E, you'll see handbook acknowledgements. No employees had a signed handbook acknowledgement in their file. So as a part of the audit, which is standard practice, we did complete a draft employee handbook. I understand that you folks need to review that, and if there's any changes or suggestions, Lynn will communicate that back to us so we can update it before it's rolled out to employees. Once that's rolled out, we suggest that an acknowledgement should be kept in every employee's file. Medical information, well, it's customary for employers to have some medical information on employees. It shouldn't be contained in the employee file. It has to be kept under separate lock and key. So this is one of those things that we coached Lynn on and helped move those files while we were on site. And then file naming convention, we did discuss with Lynn and Doug ways to perhaps save things electronically. So maybe it'd be a little bit less paper in the office and how to do that to keep themselves organized while still keeping the information secure. So I don't know if I'll move on to item number 3 unless you have any questions for me at this time so far. No? Okay. OSHA logs, number 3 again, OSHA 300 and 300A logs. Acto HR asked to review a record of OSHA logs, and there were none to review. So in the process of the audit, we told Lynn that we'd make sure that she was included on future communication and compliance reminders. So when the time comes to complete those logs in January of 2020, we can help her through that. So they're posted in a conspicuous space as required by law from February 1st to April 30th. We did notice in many of the employee files that NOTA uses a confidentiality and at-will agreement. However, it didn't appear to be consistently administered in all the employee files. So we recommend going forward that whether it be new hires or even better, gathering everyone together and having them fill out the paperwork that might be missing from the files that this document's included. And then specifically to the policies and document review under Roman numeral 2, the employee handbook. So previously, NOTA had a policies and procedures document. It was a handful of pages long, and it was clearly added to over time and didn't have a ton of consistency in formatting or content. So we created a handbook. We included the things that should be required by law, things that you want to make sure are a matter of policy, like a harassment-free workplace, equal employment opportunity, drug-free workplace, as well as policy specific to NODA. There were 2 items that we were clear and specifically added at Lynn's request, which was including PTO or paid time off and holiday pay. So while there is an existing PTO policy, there's a recommendation in there to increase it at the accrual rate over time, and then also increase holiday pay. The employee application, as I mentioned from the files, employees did have applications, but it was different formats. We created a new one, so slightly cleaner version, and we made sure all the information on there are things that you can legally ask as an employer. Some older versions that we found in the files asked for things like social security numbers and other items that we shouldn't be asking for in an employment application. I mentioned earlier that the employees' files did not consistently have offer letters. Employers are not required by law to do offer letters, but we do find in our field of HR that it is often very helpful for organizations and for employees to consistently administer offer letters. It usually sets the tone for employment, is very clear on what's expected as far as pay, hours. It sets the employment at will tone, so we encourage NODA to use that going forward, and we've provided a template to Lynn for that. Job description creation and review, number 4. NODA had a job description for the executive director, but not job descriptions for the other positions in the company, which total 4. So we did go ahead and review the job responsibilities and requirements with NODA, and subsequently created job descriptions for all roles within the organization. We also created a template for future use should there be a new type of position. I know that's probably not in the future, but if you hired a different role and needed to create a job description, you have that template. Additional new hire paperwork and new hire checklist. We did provide a lot of forms to Lynn and Doug, so with that, we gave her a very clean zip file with a new hire checklist to make sure things aren't missed going forward. And within that packet includes things that we've discussed, like application, state and federal W-4s, I-9, direct deposit forms, emergency contact, offer letter, job description, things like that. Management notes, disciplinary action, and other miscellaneous items. Of the 16 files we reviewed, there were no disciplinary notices or corrective action, but we did discuss with Lynn a few things, and we know that that is administered. Just happened to be the files that we randomly grabbed, they weren't in there. OCTO-HR did create a corrective action form that Lynn could use going forward if there are issues that arise, where it will clearly identify the employee being addressed, the behavior that was wrong, the expectation for behavior moving forward, and any potential repercussions. And then finally, Roman numeral 3, employment and compensation classification review. The employee classifications, we went through and made sure that everyone was classified properly under the Fair Labor Standards Act, so either exempt or non-exempt, and we did find that sure enough they were properly classified, so that's good, with the executive director and the operations manager as exempt, and drivers and dispatchers as non-exempt, and that means that those folks would be eligible for overtime if they work more than 40 hours in a work week. And then compensation review, something we always do as a part of our HR audits is reviewing salary for employees and see where they fall against the market. OCTO-HR likes to use a resource called Pay Scale. It's a software where we can receive pay data based on years of experience, education, the type of organization, and then in this case, we also had data available from the Older Persons Commission and the Michigan Public Transit Association. So with that, we did go through and evaluate minimums, average, and maximums for each position, and then made recommendations on pay ranges moving forward. And you will see that as an attachment in the compensation review and recap. with that being said, we did give a ton of information to Lynn. She's printed a lot of it here. With the pay scale reports, I think we had about 20 different reports at 21 pages each. So in the interest of saving trees, we did not print all of them, but they are available electronically. If you have any questions, I might be able to answer for you.
Questions, board? Doesn't look like we do.
I have a question.
Yeah,
This is great information, thank you.
you're welcome.
On the job descriptions,
Yes.
you have the executive director job description, then you have another one that says existing executive director. Can you talk about that? They're different.
Yes, and I'm sorry, I believe in the file name they were labeled differently, but as printed, I can see how they're confusing. So the one that is just a one page is like a typical executive director role. And after learning more about what Lynn does specifically, things with the accounting and other things that might not normally fall under the executive director as that position, we filled that out and made the longer job description, which is more specific to Lynn and the position she fills. And the same with, on that note, for clarity with the operations manager.
So there's IT and there's some other things in there. So what, and what do you base your salary study on, the proposed job descriptions or what they actually do?
What they actually do.
Okay.
Now, I have a question. Lynn is an excellent executive director, so we hope she stays forever. My question is the difference between the first executive director job description and the one that says existing director.
Yes.
The first one talks about qualifications and abilities, a bachelor's degree, but it doesn't speak to the number of years of experience. But the operating manager position calls for 5 or more years of experience in an operation management role. So my question is, what would be the recommendation if we were to hire again for the number of years of experience for an executive director?
We have the same thing with
Good question.
the executive director too. It's got 28 years of experience.
Because I think that applies to Lynn personally.
Yes.
But like, what about a recommendation as far as if we ever needed to hire one in the future?
So I would include, I think in this, as an executive director, obviously you need some bit of experience, but you would want to make sure it's commensurate with what you were able to pay and the type of role. So I would be happy to go back and research that for you because I don't want to give you a number off the top of my head, but we can make sure that's included in there.
Any other questions, board?
So I have one more question for Christy. Thank you. So you were on the comp review.
Yes.
Do you have a personal opinion? Who did this? You did or people?
I did,
Yeah,
yes,
so-
with.
So you show
Mathis.
minimum, midpoint, maximum. And what's your thought on this?
So, thank you for asking. So I'm going to just talk through the bullet points a little bit on this, if you're looking at this one here.
I don't have a copy.
Sorry about that.
So this was quite the lengthy process. So the MPTA had a lot of data. If you flip to the third page, you'll see the summary data we used from that. The tracking number on the left goes all the way to line 85. So that means there were 85 sources that they cited. I went through and disqualified the ones that didn't seem comparable to NODA, ones that were unionized, ones that seemed to be really far outliers, really high or really low, or lacked information specific to the roles that you have. Some of these organizations were much larger and had different job titles, and it wasn't clear just from the Excel spreadsheet to see if it was a comparable information. So, excuse me, so I didn't feel like it was consistent enough to be reliable data. So that's why you'll see that it goes up to 85, but there's only about 20 there. And then from there, I did the same thing with the older persons, excuse me, workforce commission.
Are you saying they
And then
compare?
I'm sorry?
Are you saying they compare with us?
I use their data, so they're the yellow box here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does OPC have to do with NODA as far as trying to compare?
They're a transportation company,
But they're also a very large transportation company.
They only
We're
have-
just small.
they have 22 vehicles, which is very comparable to what we have as
Now,
well.
does their director do the same as you, or do they take care of the entire building, plus transportation, plus? I don't see any correlation between OPC
Uh-huh.
and NODA,
They're a multi-million-dollar facility.
multi-million.
But I think it was just a transportation portion of that study that you pulled out.
Yes.
So I can go, I can ask OPC if their manager makes $82,000 or 100 and
I don't know.
whatever that is,
It was just,
for
yeah.
100, for only so many buses. That seems way out of line.
Part-time.
For a part-time?
Good. I should clarify in here, these are all full-time rates, so you would have to prorate it based on if you were using it for Lynn specifically, the number of hours she averages.
Wouldn't that be
a
shown
week.
here so we would know, because I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer.
I don't know, but that doesn't.
That's fine, I'm not trying to impress anyone.
We absolutely, I mean, I'd be happy to update it and send it back. If she averages 30 hours a week or 24, we can update
We need
that.
apples to
Do the math.
We need apples to apples here.
Okay. Sure thing. So then in this, this is not, super scientific here, but just based on my 15+ years in HR in working with recruiting and trying to attract and retain talent, the job, if any of you work in your paid positions doing recruiting, it's really hard right now. So typically, we try to recommend hiring within the 75th to 90th percentile. There's lots of other factors that go into that. Profitability, what the person will be doing. If any of you have copies of the pay scale report, may I borrow yours? This one right here?
Yeah.
You'll notice that pay scale has highlighted 75th and it says your target. That's something that the software puts out, isn't us, but that's just because that's what they recommend is the software service
That's what
that
we
does
have to
this.
use to make our decision.
Say that again?
If we have to use that to make our decision, it's skewed.
Well, we're saying to be competitive and find talent, we trust that recommendation. But obviously, you're free to make your own judgment on
Thank
that. Yeah.
So I got us off track, so I would
Sure.
just take us back for a minute, and I would move to receive and file the audit report, HR audit.
I support that.
Moved and supported. Any other questions on the audit or the report? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We go from here.
So, comp review. Next item.
Comp review.
So, Mr. Chair, she kind of covered it already, Christie did, but, I talked about this a little bit at the last meeting. We paused because Bruce wasn't here, because Bill wasn't here, and also,
Bruce will-
yeah. We had some discussions about the job descriptions. So now we have job descriptions, the next item on our agenda. I just think that the job we've grown, the job has changed, so I won't share the same sentiment that some of you do, that I don't think, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, I don't think we're saying, I don't see this as a wage increase. I don't think it should be categorized that way, in my opinion. I think the job has completely changed. And even if you look at the two job descriptions, the four job descriptions, the comparative job descriptions, I don't think that you basically have people that are doing things like running the operations and being the bookkeeper. You have people that are running the data, the operations manager that's also doing IT and other responsibilities. So
I think that we're actually getting organized, and I don't want to just dismiss the work that Ecto HR did, because we hired them to look at our organization and make recommendations, and I think we should listen, in my opinion, so.
You have anything to say, Bruce? I figured you would.
Well, you know, we've been probably one of the most efficient transportation authorities in Oakland County, and probably a lot of people look at us as being very efficient. We're in the process right now we bought a building, and I see we're having tremendous overruns, the things we didn't understand. It's hard for my citizens who pay the taxes to understand how we got into this position where we have these extreme overruns. And when we come up with these packages of 8.5% or 25% raises and everything, I talked to some of my taxpayers, and they're not very happy about this. And I myself am not very happy. I would like to make a motion that we give everybody a 5% raise across the board. I think that's more than adequate. That's what I'm going to give my employees at my township. And I think that's more than adequate. The government just said it was 1.6 is what they're giving all the retirees, and yet our retirees are paying for the NOTA here, and I think 5%. If we have to catch up, we can't do it overnight. If we have to catch up, it's got to be in small steps. People will understand that, but I just don't think they'll understand huge raises. We gave a 17% raise, a 13% raise, 2 5% raises, and now we want another 25% raise.
Can you shorten that motion?
My motion would be that I would like a 5% raise across the board for all the employees. I think that's more than fair. We have.
Hold. Can we have your, without an opinion?
That's it.
I'll support it for discussion. I too, I'm afraid of what the citizens are going to think about this. I know the millage, all of a sudden we get a millage, now we're spending $1 million here, $500,000 there, 25% increases. The next time this millage comes up, it won't have a freaking prayer. I know in Addison, and I'm not sure it would have a prayer in Oxford. So I think you're going to see the demise. We got RTA breathing down our necks. We have, I think they're going to be becoming gangbusters next time. And we just gotta tighten our belts. Yes.
I'm going to back up a little bit. The survey, the compensation survey portion, we've already heard that they were using full-time comparisons. And we all acknowledge that Lynn works like a full-timer, but are we talking about a 40-hour job a week or not? And to my understanding, it hasn't been technically a 40-hour job. So if you were to look at the midpoints on the proposed budget, looking at it from the perspective that 30 hours versus 40 is a 25% difference, we could still, a 5% increase makes more sense in that regard than a 25%. And that's why I don't have a problem with the 5% increase. It would be 5%, I didn't do the math, but I know that if we were to cut it by 25% to $85,000, it would mean a $63,750 revenue for compensation for the executive director. Just using that one in this illustration. So I think that's 5% is far better than the 25 on that, just on that basis alone, let alone the appearance of, we've been spending money left and right on acquisition of a building, over $300,000 in remodeling the building, and we're not done yet. We still have other considerations to concern. I just think we have to get our priorities right and move forward. So That's what I have to say.
No, we have to, Lynn, you get benefits, right?
Yes.
You get hospitalization and a 401K,
No, I don't have a 401K. Just
but you get
hospitalization.
hospitalization. But for a part-time
That's all.
job, it's pretty good.
That's your opinion. I would just say.
You're right, I do have an opinion.
I know, and I have one too. And my opinion is, I don't know why we hire an HR firm to do a study for us and then just come up with something arbitrary. It's my opinion. You guys can have different opinions. We just did the same thing at the township. Well, we didn't just do it. We did it a few years ago. I understand the mindset that Bill and Bruce, you share, that as soon as we give a raise to NOTA, then all of a sudden our employees are going to expect the same thing in the township. I totally disagree. We did a job study a few years ago. We used HR, we used software, we rated every job, and then we rescaled all the jobs because we had positions here that were not being paid appropriately for the market. Meaning, we want to attract good talent and keep them. And you can't always just say forever in an organization, you're just going to give people 2%, 3%, 5% increases every year. Sometimes you have to look at it and see. I'll tell you right now, full disclosure, our building inspectors are grossly underpaid. We're trying to work with our union to look at that, because I just lost one that could go work at the neighboring community and start making 20 grand more a year. So that's why we hire these HR professionals to actually do the studies, to look at the market and say, God forbid we lose some of our key talent and we have to replace them. Would we be able to attract key talent to do that? The other thing I would just propose is, I don't think it's a wage increase, like I said last time, and so I don't think we should be telling the voters and our residents that we're giving a 25% wage increase. We're actually adjusting the wage for what it should be, in my opinion, because if you look at the job descriptions, there's no way we can hire somebody. There's the candidate pool to do exactly what our director's doing and our operations manager are probably zero. They're so specified to be able to have these great skill sets, and we're utilizing them. And I don't think you could argue with the data that they're grossly underpaid. So, Lynn, you budgeted in the budget that you have in front of us tonight, that you budgeted what we have in our packet on page I-5, correct?
71,000, is that?
Right, so, and that's based on the midpoint?
It's actually in between the minimum and midpoint, so.
That's what okay, so it's above the minimum and below the midpoint and not near the maximum. So, I mean, I would just say it's about the messaging that we give. Obviously, if we're going to go tell our residents that we gave a bunch of 25% raises, of course they're going to be ticked off. But I don't think that's the whole picture, in my opinion, and I don't think it's fair for us to say that. And so, I obviously sound like I might be in the minority here, but I just think that if we know better than the experts, then we shouldn't pay the experts to do the work for us in the future. We should just save the money. If we're afraid of what the experts will say, I'm talking about Ecto HR, then we shouldn't pay them. Now that we have this information and we know, I just don't know how we don't have a more substantive conversation about it than just to say, let's just disregard everything they said, and 5% should be a good raise and everybody should be happy.
Any other questions?
I have
I
just
do.
one. Oh, Carol?
I apologize, where can we find the recommended salary amount?
It's in the agenda packet on page I-5.
All the records.
No, like the actual recommended.
Oh,
Like
for
here,
the budget,
so
here.
here's the current rate, the budget will make the difference. It's on I-5.
a follow-up to Lynn, based on what's in the budget, what does that do to our fund balance?
So with the proposed budget for 2020, including the numbers, we would still have a contingency, which is an extra of 157,586.
So is it growing from the end of this year to the end of next year, or is it
Yes.
getting smaller?
It's growing. Our contingency this year for 2019 is 54,474. Proposed for next year, the contingency would be 157,586.
And that's kind of why I feel the way I do, because we're not spending our fund balance, we're actually proposing to grow our fund balance over the next 12 months with those proposed salary rates.
And the grants are 66% cover the salaries.
We're talking about long-term taxes.
Well, I'd like to make a point that we hired a broad spectrum HR analysis, and that finally today we got the results of that analysis, and that's what I was looking for. And I liked what I heard. There's a few holes that we need to mend, and they have nothing to do with salaries. And that was what I think this board was really looking for, was to find out where are we as an organization, as well as where are we going. That was why I was in favor of having the analysis done. It wasn't to learn whether or not we were overpaid or underpaid in our salaries. It's to find out exactly what we have found out. And knowing that now, I think we should plan to compensate accordingly, but not by we haven't discussed it at all. We were presented with this report and then with a budget and said, we can make this work, but is that all we're supposed to do? And the answer is no, we're supposed to plan. And I think it's fair to plan to compensate our employees fairly, not instantly, when there's a need.
Well, I would just like to add, we have given 17% raises and a 13% raise and 5% raises in 4 years. It's not like we're sitting on our hands and not giving anybody any money. We've given a lot of money. This is, and now another 25%. I mean, we're talking 30, 40, 65% raises in 5 years. My citizens don't understand that.
No, you don't understand either that, if that's what you think. That's not what it is.
Well,
No.
explain it to us then, again,
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, there's a wage history that we passed out
Yes.
last time, and it talked about all the raises it had it. And for myself, I had, so back in 2011, the director was paid $50,000, I was paid $20,000 to do the CPA duty. So that was $70,000 that NODA was paying in total for both jobs. When I took it on, I went back down to $50,000, so it saved NODA $20,000. And I've been doing the accounting work basically for, I haven't charged any extra for that work. The first 3 years I did 0% increase, then I had 3 years of 2% increases, and I had 1 year of 5%. So those were the changes were for myself. For the drivers, we had for 2011, we've gone from $11 to now $15 in total.
And the operations manager?
The operations manager, yes, the operations manager, Doug was hired in for $30,000 in 2013. And he has had a couple of raises since then. He had a 2% raise, 0% in 14, 2% in 15. He had a $5,000 raise in 2016 and a $4,400 raise up to, so we went from $30,000 to $40,000 in 2017, and then he's just had 5% raises from there. But
That
again,
was a
back when he
17, a
started.
13, and 2 5.
Right, but back when he started, there really was no IT, it was different, we were a paper-run system. It's a completely different operation from where we are now with our tablets and GPS and the requirements. We just went out for bid for the prices of what you'd pay for IT to replace what he's doing. The minimum is $99 an hour, the average is $170. So those are the costs that we're saving, having do that work in-house. That wasn't even existing back then.
In regards to the proposed, I lost the word, our contingency fund, does that include the two 6-inch fire main changes? Is that money included as being deducted, or is it?
No, that's coming out of our fund balance, so we have, our fund balance is over $1 million, so it's coming out of fund balance that we've accrued from the grant money. So we've paid cash for the building, and we're going to be able to pay cash for all the improvements without going into debt at all. So that money is going to be coming out of our savings accounts. We have separate funds that are going to affect our operations at all.
So you're saying it won't affect contingency?
No, it's really going to be the fund balance that's just going to be reduced, so it's not, those are
Bill?
How much in overruns are we in?
with overruns. Well, the fire suppression system was the extra that we really didn't know about. It's going to be $100,000, roughly, maybe $110,000.
Margie?
I'm sorry, you said that the grants cover 66% of the employee wage?
Of all salaries.
Of all
yes.
salaries, okay.
Joe, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to share some factual information from what I can determine. Right now, the executive director's hourly rate is $36.54 at $30 an hour, which equals to $57,000. And if you give a 5% increase, that's raise it to $38.37. It'll raise the budget to just under $60,000. Now, if you take that 38, 37, 5% hourly rate times a full-time job in 2080, the annual rate is just under $80,000. So, you understand that? Budgeted rate at 5%, it's gonna be $60,000. If it was full-time, 40 hours, it would be almost $80,000, that hourly rate. So, because even the study said, you know, that's 40-hour person, Lynn is paid at 30-hour hourly rate. Hourly rate is the key thing, besides the salary. And the hourly rate is obviously very competitive.
It's the board's pleasure. Roll call.
Roll call.
Are we approving the budget tonight?
No,
No.
that's it.
Why are we not approving the budget? I mean, we should have done that last month.
We stopped because we were talking about the wages.
But the budget's coming up.
So Lynn
I
provided a
understand.
budget to us, but it includes, it would have, to have adopted the budget would have included the raises, and there was a need for more definition as far as that goes, and I think that's why we're here tonight, and that's why we have a motion.
See what I get for missing a meeting?
Well, I need to just ask one more question, I think. So, I would contend, I don't disagree with anything you said as your opening statement. RTA probably is coming back. There's an opportunity, more than likely, if we're organized, that it'll bring more funding into NODA. We will become the transit authority of maybe larger area. I just think that, yes, it's nice to give people a 5% raise, but we need to see if we're paying people competitive in the market, and I don't think we are. People at our McDonald's on M24 make more than our drivers do. Now, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. Maybe that's what we want to pay people. I do think we should really look at this, and the reason I'm going to vote no on the 5% wage increase across the board is because I think we really need to look at, that's why I asked for it the last time, and that's why we didn't take action, I thought, was because we were going to talk more about it. So I feel very comfortable that the budget includes the proposed wage increases and increases our fund balance next year. And I don't think we should even be talking about the construction project in the new building in the same conversation as wages. They're totally separate discussions. The board made a decision to purchase this building because we thought it was the best interest of the long-term sustainability of NODA, the direction we're going. That's totally separate from a wage discussion. The other thing I said at the last meeting, part of that new building, if you want to start talking about the new building, now we manage 10,000 square feet of rental space. Who's going to do that? That's added to someone's job responsibilities. Guess who's going to do it? Lynn and Doug. One more thing on their job descriptions. That's why I'm okay with it. I mean, we literally, when we hired her in 2011, we were paying $70,000 for that job of 2 people back then. 9 years later, we're proposing to pay, where's my number? 9 years later, we're proposing to pay $1,250 more than we were paying for this same work to be done 9 years ago. I don't think it's outrageous. So, the reason I asked about the budget is because if we're going to approve the budget tonight, or I don't think we're going to be prepared to approve the budget because all the numbers in the budget reflect the wages that were put in based on the study, which again, were between the minimum and midpoint of the recommendations from ACTO HR.
Yeah, Joe?
Regarding the budget, Lynn did provide for us what the rate differential was between what's in the proposed budget and what a 5% raise is. Where it shows the salary and budget amount, the difference is $16,278 if I'm correct. You just merely take the proposed budget, subtract $16,278, and it would incorporate the 5% increase, assuming this motion does pass.
I'd just like to add one further comment. I would vote for this because it will pass and it will provide the proof that we value the employees, all of the employees. And as a board, we should talk with Lynn as the director for future budgeting purposes of what we need to do to make sure that she's comfortable with us and that the operation will continue. To just take a blanket recommendation, even, and I appreciate the fact that it was midpoint at that, but it was based on full-time jobs with, professional people like Lynn, and that's valid. But extrapolating that we can separate salary from the entire operation is wrong. We're looking at this entire operation, and it's all intermingled. Lynn has to do it every day. Every decision she makes, she has to decide where's the best use of the money. And she can't just look at the employees, and she can't just look at the vehicles. So we need to do the same thing.
Before we call a vote, I'm just going to say if it's not successful, I would offer a differing motion, because it seems like people have the largest problem with the director's salary. I would offer a differing motion to take the driver's hourly rate to $15 an hour, which is a 7.53% increase. $15 an hour we're paying for drivers. And I really think we should look at what's been proposed for the operations manager at $55,000. That's a full-time job with full-time hours. That includes our IT, that includes everything now running out of facilities. So if this doesn't, and maybe I'm swaying someone, maybe I'm not, but if this motion isn't successful at the 5%, and then maybe we table the director discussion, because it sounds like a lot of the discussion is on that, could be my opinion, but I definitely think we need to look at the operations manager, dispatch, and driver, because I think we're not competitive with fast food restaurants.
Yes.
Another way we could go about the director position is we could go back to the way it was done in 2011 and have a wage for the director and have a wage for the CPA work. And if it happens to be the same person, so be it. But there you go, you have the two separate wages. It's not a 25% increase for anybody. It's a reasonable increase for the two individual jobs that are being done.
That's an interesting idea.
Roll call.
Set.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Barnett.
No.
Flood.
No.
Payne.
No.
Young, yes. McDonald.
Yes.
Carlo D.O.G.
No.
No. Bill Dunn.
Yes.
Motion passed, let's see. Passes 5-4.
Okay. Is there a motion to receive and file the financial activity report?
We're not there.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
We're not going
We're on 8A2.
We're on compensation review.
Okay, I got it. Fell asleep.
I'd like to make a motion that we, after we are in the building and situated, that we re-review the salaries of the director and the operations manager at that time.
I'll second that motion.
And we can have new information on,
Let's get it built, let's get it up running, let's get all this straightened out, what the duties are, that's my opinion.
And I'll add the drivers into that too, in my motion, right? Review the salaries and wages after we're in the building.
it's been moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to make a motion to pay the drivers the recommended 7 point whatever percent, because that's my motion. Is there support for discussion?
I don't know.
Support for
Isn't
discussion.
that conflict with what we just approved a minute ago?
Yeah, we just
But
approved
we
the
can do anything
5%.
we want with the motion.
Okay.
Can we?
Still review it after.
What?
Still review.
But it's like two raises, 5% and then 2.53. Okay, sure, I support it, so yes.
No, but the reason they talk about McDonald's, and I think our drivers have a lot more responsibility than a McDonald's person, either working on the cash register or flipping burgers. And I rethought it, and I wish I could have changed the motion. I didn't, that's why I brought it back. I think they deserve the $16 an hour.
Well, I think the health department would disagree because they think that food, cleanliness, safety, health are just as important to the human as being transported from place to place. I mean, and that's the point I think that we've all got, is we all have to see it from a different perspective.
So to clarify the motion is to pay the drivers $15 an hour.
Look, can I ask, what, with the 5% raise of what they are making now, what is the actual hourly rate?
Is it 16?
They're at $13.95. correct, Lynn?
$14.64.
What would it be?
$14.64, Bill's motion and the recommended,
$14.64 with the 5%
Yep.
raise.
and then the Bill's motion is at 15, which is 7.53, which was what's in the budget, or which was in the proposed budget.
And the total was, what, 16 an hour?
15,
15 hours.
1-5.
So, I mean, I just went through McDonald's, and if you go down the Rochester one, it says hiring now, $11 an hour. That's in Rochester. 1464, I think is good. Next year, every year we add a little bit, okay? But,
They're part-time jobs, right, Lynn?
yes.
Drivers?
We have 4 full-time drivers.
Okay.
Do they receive benefits?
No, and that's part of the proposal was to have the full-time drivers be paid holiday pay, which was part of what the proposal was in the handbook.
How can
So
that be? If they're full-time, they should be getting benefits.
no, because we're under the required. We don't have to.
So they're not full-time.
No, they're full-time, but they just don't receive benefits.
The number of employees.
Because we don't
Because we're
have
under,
the number
we're
of
under 50
employees that we have
employees,
to
so you don't
have.
have to.
Need 50?
Yes.
50 employees.
Right, yeah.
Yep. Anyway, just if anybody's curious, that new rate that's proposed, well, the road rate we just approved for full-time drivers, $30,000 a year. Just, I'm not saying, if it was 15, it'd be $31,200.
Well, we'll find out who agrees.
Can you clean that motion up a little bit?
I could.
Let's clarify it. Because you made it for 7.5% or something.
I made it for the recommended, what was recommended in the
We've already approved a 5% raise for them, so let's make it for whatever more you want to.
It was 3.5% more.
2.5%.
2.5%.
2.5%.
My motion is to give the drivers a 2.5% increase.
Okay, and I keep playing this off our counter, though. Now they're gonna make more than the dispatcher. I think you should keep those two together,
Okay,
because,
I agree, that's a good point. May as well do
so
the
I think
same.
you should just say, maybe the total raise of 7.5% or an additional 2.5 from the last motion for the drivers and dispatchers.
Thank you for clarifying that. That's my motion.
I amend my second.
Wait a minute. What's the amendment again?
An additional 2.5% for both the dispatchers and the drivers.
Registered, it's 2.53, not 2.5. Look at the packet.
Okay, we'll do the 2.53. Thank you, accountant.
Amend my second to 2.53.
That's not the first time you've caught me. Roll call.
Pearson,
I'll vote yes on that.
Barnett,
Yes.
Flood,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Young, yes, McDonald,
Yes.
Carlo Jean,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Consent.
Yes.
Are we going to do anything on the job descriptions in the employee handbook? I would like to not do anything on it because I just got it.
I'd like to read it.
Aye.
Well, and if we do it the next meeting, I think we should not adopt the existing director and existing operations manager job descriptions. I think we should adopt what's just proposed, because I think that those discussions should happen when we do the wage discussion next year, because it'll show that the duties are different than what.
Sure.
So just a recommendation.
move we set aside the job description and employee handbook draft for
Support.
the next meeting.
Moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Update on the lease options. Who would like to take this one?
We received a lease, which is in your packet, from PYP Ventures. And they had, I think I included last month their proposal. This proposal, letter of intent is a little different. It is now starting November 1st through March 31st at a lower rate of $1,500 a month. And then when they actually move into the facility, the rate goes up to $4,000 a month, starting April 1st, and it's a 3-year lease term. So it's, we'll have like $1,500 for 5 months, which is like $7,500, and then $4,000 for 36 months. So the total lease is like $151,500. The previous lease, they had $5,000 a month, which is our $6 a square foot, but they had a gross lease. This one is triple net, so this is $4,000 plus insurance, taxes, and all the costs. So, and I think Mike is here if you have any questions.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Mike Daly, YP Ventures. I want to give you guys some money.
What type of work is this?
We do pet fencing. So we're currently in a 5,000 square foot building on 24 behind Premier Storage. And we need more space. We just acquired another small outdoor pet enclosure business. And your building is the perfect size for us. We need about 10,000 square feet. So.
Are you going to be storing anything that's going to be, it's going to require
Ventilation.
Fire suppression.
fire suppression?
No.
We're sure of this?
I mean, my materials don't, but I don't know how that handles with the township, right? That's or the state.
There's no vehicles
Here's no
or,
vehicles.
No, there would be a high-low in it.
But the high-low was okay, because when I spoke with the building inspector, he
The
said
high-low
that,
is propane.
they said that the high-low would be fine. It's just, as long as there's no vehicles being parked in
Yeah,
there.
there wouldn't be any vehicles.
Just want to make sure we don't have to
The
all of a
trucks, we'll
sudden
be
put in
unloading the trucks.
another $100,000 worth of suppression.
Yeah, the trucks, anytime we had delivery trucks or trucks unloading, they would be sitting outside the building at the door.
Okay.
And it would, I mean, we'd have racking, we'd put up racking and just be storing stuff. We'd have, for the first 5 months of that lease, we would just be storing product there and probably only be using a few thousand square feet of the building. And then when we officially move in, we'd have 2 to 3 employees in there at any given time.
Lynn, do we have any other offers?
No, we really don't right now. We had one from the Marine, but that was only a short-term lease, from Mobile Marine.
When did you last discuss with Oakland Mobile Marine?
Just this week. I did speak
I'm
with
sorry?
Dan. I just spoke with Dan this week, and he said.
This week? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
I have a question. What do we have to do to, what expense do we have to make it so that it's available for you? Is there construction?
There is.
There's another outlay of money?
There are some improvements which are on E1, if you look in the packet. So part of it is some improvements which include LED lighting in the warehouse fee, that's $9,072. Update the men's restroom, that was part of our original proposal anyway, so there's no additional cost. Install a women's restroom, which was also part of the original building drawings. But there is a small, like $4,500 worth of plumbing and things that was not included in there. To install a minimum 5-foot window in the office space area, so there's the kitchen area, they want to have a window put in there to use that as an office. The general contractor said that would be about $6,000, and to clean and wash the walls and warehouse floors, we estimated about $3,000. So the total cost for the improvements are $22,608. And then there's a brokerage commission, which would be $6,060. So total costs are $28,668. The total revenue collected from the lease is $151,500.
Did we hire the broker?
Did we hire the?
We said there's a broker fee.
Oh, the broker, it's his brokers.
They contacted us.
They contacted, it would be nice.
That's clear.
So we need close to $30,000 to do the work, to get it ready.
April 1st.
Yeah, and that wouldn't need to be done until April 1st.
But I'm still not clear on whether or not fire suppression will only be for our portion of the operation. I'm not clear if we're gonna have to do that, the whole building, or not at this point.
Yeah, well, I did meet with the inspector, and basically what I wrote in my report, for the building inspector, Ken LaBelle, we won't need to suppress the back warehouse B if we bolt down the doors between the two. So he had three options. Number one is fire suppress, that would be his first choice, obviously. The second one is to put concrete blocks and block in the doors, so you're actually blocking them. And the third option is to just actually bolt the doors down into the concrete. And he said that would be fine, it would pass inspection. We have it's a 2-hour rated wall. And we won't even have to do anything with the ceiling because that portion in the back is higher than the front, so we wouldn't have to do anything like.
We would do that for security anyhow.
Right, and so those would be bolted doors between them. And then he said if you did that, and FYI, we would be able to retrofit it if in the future, if we ever wanted to use the entire space ourselves, and do that, we would be able to retrofit it, having it bolted down that way. Plus, it's the cheapest option. The tenant would be able to load and unload vehicles, have a forklift, as long as they don't park gas engines inside. So that's basically what he told us.
And what rent would we collect from, you're talking November 1st until April 1st?
Yes, so
What would the amount of rent?
just for next year, or
Well,
for
I
the
understand
entire?
it's $1,500 a month.
$7,500.
Yeah, we'll collect, yes, it's it'll be 5 months of $1,500, which is $7,500,
$7,500.
and then $4,000 for 36 months, which is $144,000, so the total is $151,500.
Okay, but from November till the time that he
Yeah.
wants this done, we
It's
collect
$7,500.
$7,500,
Yes.
and we need about $30,000 to fix it up.
Right,
We collect $12,500 because we get their $5,000 security deposit too.
yes,
Lynn, what was Oakland Mobile Marine wanting to pay?
$1,800.
$1,800.
It's a triple net, it's triple net now.
It is triple net now, so they're paying for the.
Paying the taxes.
Are they paying the taxes from November 1st?
Yes.
Yes, obviously, speaking to our attorney too, he kind of has drawn up a lease agreement. It would have to be, once the board decides what they would want, then we'd have our attorney actually draw up the actual lease
Well,
agreement.
the only thing I was going to bring to everybody's attention is right now, that building, because we're a nonprofit, there is no tax.
Right,
Once we rent that back half, what's the estimate of, I saw $500,000 of what they say that's worth. So
Yes.
our tax on that is what?
it'll be about $20,000 a year.
20,000. Do we also have, that's in the village?
It's in the village.
Do they have another, how many mills in the village, 11?
10
No, I
point,
think that's the total
I
tax.
think it's a
20,000
total.
township.
Do you think that's total?
Yeah, because I called
did you get that from the assessor?
from the Oakland County equalization,
Yeah. from-
yes.
And your taxes are high in Oxford.
Share.
And then, does that include all of the millages? You have police, fire,
That's good.
That includes it.
Yeah, that
everything?
would include it.
That includes
That's a total.
DPW.
But it's triple net, they're
They're
paying.
paying for it.
Well, I understand, I'm just telling you that right now, we're tax-free, we don't
Right.
pay any on that. So when we go and we rent that out, that goes now on the tax roll.
Right.
But if it's triple net, he's paying it, it's still coming out of the rent. I mean, whether he pays it or we pay it, he's paying it.
No, it's on top of it.
I agree, but I mean, the rent would be
I
higher,
think
but
that's
he's
probably
paying
Oh,
the
yes.
triple net.
That's the reason why I went from 5,000 to 4,000.
Right, exactly.
The village is happy.
My only concern is that this is basically a startup company. They've been in business going on 2 years.
We purchased the original business 2 years ago, it's been around for 15 years, and the business we just acquired is also about 15 years old.
So you've been in business for a little over 2 years?
Our entity, yes.
Yeah. And they want a 3-year lease. My only concern would be is if they start to fail and they miss a payment, we should have the right to reclaim and terminate. And if that could be included in
Lease agreement?
the lease agreement, I have no objection.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned that, you know, the economy flip-flops or whatever, and they get in trouble, and we're gonna have to fight over them leaving or not. And I'd like to expedite that as much as possible. No disrespect at all.
I think that would be.
I would be totally fine with that.
Any lease agreement. So, Mr. Chair, can I make a motion?
You can.
Move that we approve the 36-month lease with PYP Ventures per the terms that are attached in our packet. Subject to NOTA not being required to fire suppress the back building. So, meaning, if somehow the village comes back or the township fire marshal says we have to suppress it, then we'd have to go back to the drawing board.
I'll support.
What about termination of,
I don't think, I mean,
That's in a standard
It's gonna be a
use.
standard lease. We'll be able
as long as it's there?
to, yeah,
Yeah.
I think we can just let them
I'll
know,
make sure.
but it'll-
We just did let her know.
Okay.
It's been moved and I support it. Roll call.
oh, okay. The one question is, what do you need for a window? Just a regular 5-foot? You just want daylight?
Just some daylight, and to be able to see if trucks come in.
I think we should at least look at that. I don't want to micromanage the project, but $6,000 to cut through block and put a window in seems steep.
Amen.
Yeah,
So maybe we could at least just look at that. I know we're trying to use the contract we already have, but we might be able to save a couple grand right there.
Sure.
Yeah, jackhammer.
I mean, I would do it for $6,000. You want to hire me?
No.
I've seen Mike
I do it
drive,
for
maybe we could have him just
5,500.
drive back into the building.
What about 5,500?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
definitely get
you're
at
hired.
least 3 times.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's,
we'll just get some quotes.
I will definitely get
And I
some
can
quotes.
help you get some quotes.
don't make me use this. Roll call.
Barnett,
Yes.
Bud,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Young, yes, McDonald,
Yes.
Dino G,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Sent,
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
A sweep.
Good luck, sir.
thank you.
Good luck.
Don't go out of business.
And welcome to Oxford.
Is the village going to send us a thank you note?
Update on the building.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, it's kind of in my report, so I guess I'll just read my report and kind of do 2 things in one. This month I applied for 5 grants, which total $1,136,108. So they're kind of listed in our report. And as far as the building update, the outside of the building is painted, the new walls are up and drywalled, the bathrooms are gutted and plumbed, the roof, the electrical, and the plumbing all passed inspection, the new furnaces are installed. The issue now is getting the fire suppression into the building. They need to tap into the water line across the street. We did find a vendor that's going to be putting in an 8-inch line, which could suppress our entire building if we ever need to in the future. So we'll have a cutoff, so if we ever needed to extend it from there, we wouldn't have to re-tap. They actually dug into the tap today. They got a backhoe and dug into it to actually see how large it was, because the city was saying it was, 10 inches, it was actually 14. So it's plenty, it's fine, and 8 inches are fine. So that's reassuring. They actually got the permit today to do the tap, and they think they're going to be doing that work next week already. So,
That's great.
yeah, so that's going to be happening. And the oil separator, they need to find the drain inside. They think they've located it. They're going to be doing something. They have to cut through the concrete to find that. Just met with some alarm vendors, looking at colors and samples now.
Okay.
Move to receive and file the director's report.
Move.
Second.
Seconded by Joe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Would there be a motion to approve the financial, receive and file the financial activity report?
You want to do the bills?
Okay, I just kind of jumped over them. Let's move on to the bills then. Any questions on the bills?
Did you want to do the director's report or not?
That was-
I moved it, I
We just
did
did
it,
it. We just did it. See, you got the GCs,
Yeah, I guess, I'm following.
Old
you.
timers.
I'm following
So
you.
Bill, I'll move the bills in the amount of $26,067.85.
Second.
Moved and supported. Roll call.
Flood,
Yes.
Payne,
Yes.
Young, yes, McDonald,
Yes.
Dino Jean,
Yes.
Dunn,
Yes.
Stent,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Barnett.
Yes. If I can continue, move to receive and file a financial activity.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed? Motion carried. On to the budget.
I move the motion to set aside the approval of the 2020 budget until the November meeting.
I'll support with a question. Is this a calendar year budget we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got till December to get it locked up.
I could do the adjustment with what happened today as far as putting the rates
You're
in.
talking about just doing the $16,000 adjustment?
Well,
Difference.
We're doing the, with the drivers and the dispatchers, yes, we're having that increase in and then just keeping the.
Can we just approve it?
Well, I mean, I think we can probably if the board's comfortable, but I think that on the on the rental income, you know, maybe, do you show the expenses someplace?
The, I put the revenue in, adjusted as per the lease
Oh,
agreement, so
okay.
it's 40,500, and then I have the rental income, like, what I expect to kind of get back from costs, like, if there's any maintenance costs and things that will be charged to them of 9350. So, the taxes I don't have included, because I figure that's a wash, that's gonna be something that they're gonna have to cover, so.
They're just covering their
They're just-
portion though, right?
Right.
Or are they?
No, just their
It's
portion.
just theirs.
Just
We
the
don't,
half.
we don't do their snow removal, right? They do
We
their
do,
own.
but that's part of what they'll be reimbursing us. It'll be, I have an extra, like, $9,000 in costs if there's any maintenance costs or anything else they have to pay, so that's it. And they'll pay for part of the lawn maintenance, the snow removal, whatever. So
I mean, Bill, to your point, I mean, yes, because the earlier motion was to not look at the other salaries until after we're all settled in the building. We potentially could approve it, and just direct ask them to make the adjustments.
You can always shift money around.
But that's not the motion right now.
Well, the motion was to set aside till the next meeting.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was gonna say nay, but
I was gonna say nay.
nobody else did.
Nay.
Nay. Nay.
I'm good with just setting it. I mean, she'll make the tweaks.
Okay, Mr. Flip Flop.
You didn't vote for it either?
Should be easy peasy.
I didn't vote yes or no.
it's all good.
Okay, public comment. Any public comment? Public comment? You're good? You good?
Make a motion to receive and file the monthly rider and mileage reports.
Support.
Moved and supported. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board member comments, starting with Margie.
Nothing.
Christopher. Or Chris.
Spirited discussion, call me either. I really want to revisit the discussion about what drove us apart. Some of you may know, a lot of you might not know, but we are being looked at as the model by Commerce and Milford and who else, Lynn?
White Lake.
White Lake.
Mhm.
And they're gonna call themselves WODA. We work with Bruce, Bill, and I work often with Rick Kowal, White Lake, Don Green, Milford, David Scott, Commerce Supervisors,
Waterford also.
and Gary Wall in Waterford. And I would just say that, like, I think we get a tremendous value for the dollars we spend. I don't think we would ever, I understand the concern about the millage, but I do think we need to think about replacement costs. God forbid it ever happens, don't ever leave Lynn, but I think we need to really look at that. That's all I got for today. Oh, and Aldi opened this morning, just in case anyone was
wow.
curious.
How was it?
It was cool. Just
Take your own bag.
Oh, they gave Mike and me a bag because they said we were on the VIP list.
We're on a take.
It's on TV, Mike.
Is that all you got?
That's all.
Mike?
What I meant to say was I'd take my wife with me. When she found out they're having the media opening this morning and stuff, she said, "You're not going without me." So they gave out the nice little bags for the people that showed up. I handed her bag. She says, "Where's yours?" And I says, "I just gave it to you." She says, "No, you didn't. Yours is still on that shelf."
And you did it, you went and got it.
Oh, absolutely. But no, I was glad to see spirited conversation here. I was glad to see the drivers and dispatch. We handled that. I like that. How we did that for those. A lot of things coming down the pipe with the RTA and stuff, and I hope that hopefully we won't get the same package deal that they gave us last time. Tried to. Hopefully we'll come out on a good end on that. So we'll have to wait and see. So, and I thank you for doing a great job with your team. That's it.
Bruce?
No comment, I'm all set.
Well, I've nothing against you, you know, I love the work you do, and I say it all the time. I did learn something today, I forgot that we combined both jobs. So, I mean, I'm gonna have to rethink. I don't have all the answers, thank God. There's nothing against you. Michael?
I enjoyed the spirited discourse, and I think that's what we should be doing. Any committee that gets along and agrees on everything every time, there's something wrong. And I think we can both appreciate all of our points of view, and we're trying to make Miller better. And Lynn, you know I support you 100% and the organization. And I'm sure we're going to show them how much we appreciate them, but we're going to do it in an orderly and systematic manner. Okay?
Carla Jean?
My comment regarding the compensation review, I know it's going to be discussed and reviewed again. There was a lot of comment regarding the comparison from full-time to versus part-time. And I guess when we revisit it, I'd like to see it, everything prorated for the amount of hours, because the projected amount is consistent with the 30 hours. Like this 71,250 is still consistent with a 30-hour a week working. And I think there's some hang up with that comparison between full-time and part-time. So just to make it more clear when we discuss it in the future.
Is that it?
Yep, that's it.
Eric?
I think we had a good discussion, but I agree with what you mentioned, Bill, and what you said in the discussion about the job description, about combining the two duties. I've kind of forgotten about that. I remember we talked about that before.
I forgot.
And I think, and what, Chris, to your point, more of a reclassification as opposed to a huge increase. I think that's got some merit. I think if you mix those two up, job description, you know, combining and all that, I think that'd be the right way to discuss this in the future.
Yeah, and we have, can I do a do-over?
It's a do-over.
I agree, and I meant to say that. I liked your idea about potentially splitting it again, because that's what it used to be, and maybe the same person holds both jobs. But I do think we need to be careful. We're on TV, the press is here, they write, people read. That we need to choose our words carefully, because I don't see it as a wage increase. That's what I keep saying. It's the job is not the same as it was a few years ago, and it's real easy for someone like CJ to write a quick soundbite and say, no to director and operation manager get 25% raise. That's not, in my opinion, that's not an accurate statement, but that's what will run the day. And I think we all should be concerned about our number one priority is making sure we continue to provide the service, which means we need to get our millages passed, which that would make it really difficult to get millages passed. So anyway, thanks for the do-over, and that was a great idea.
What do I gotta do over?
Yeah, as long as it's fair.
I would just like to say, I'm trying to keep NODA competitive with the values of our communities. Our communities are not the same as what they are in the south end of the county. They're not the same as what they are in some of the other major cities that we we compare with the state and everything. I'm just trying to keep it competitive with what our taxpayers will vote for. And as you know, in Addison, we've had trouble getting the votes. We did get the renewal. But when I start hearing grumblings, when I come and tell you, I'm trying to tell you that when the citizens are telling us something, and I'm trying to keep us competitive so that we can keep moving forward and keep getting support of the community. If we ever, some way or another, disappoint our taxpayers, we'll hear their wrath at the election. And that's all I'm trying to say
I've
is,
heard the rumble, not the wrath.
and as you know, NOTA started in Addison Township, okay? It was started by our fire department, and it expanded. And I'm just trying to tell you, those were our values. When we started it, we provided excellent service, we've done an excellent job, and like you say, everybody looks at us as being the most efficient. I just like to keep it the most efficient. And it's just, same with my fire department. The first thing when I came into office, they all wanted to unionize because the last administration didn't give them what they wanted. I said, give me a chance to make this right. And they didn't unionize, and I did make it right. And they're happy with that. But it didn't come overnight. I had to do it in steps. And my taxpayers understand steps, but they don't understand huge raises because it looks bad. So that's all I got to say.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Well, we gotta give Joe a chance.
Joe?
Okay, thank
Good, good, you sure? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Eric,
Whatever.
Yeah, okay.
Eric. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Approved? Opposed?